How did you meet Mom then?
I met your mother. I went to school at Montana State College.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I went to school there was because Russell was going to Washington State College in Pullman, and had gotten tired of following him through school. I'd always
Right.
been known as Russell's little brother. And so I wanted to go someplace where he wasn't, and I was able to go to Montana State College on in-state tuition because Dad was an alumnus of the state college system in Montana, and he got me in as a state resident, even though I wasn't. And so I went to Montana State, and that's where I met Alan Brown. I met Alan Brown right out of the box. We were both being rushed by the Sigma Chi's. I was probably because Dad's friend Ben Chestnut, I guess was his name, had a son Wayne Chestnut who was a Sigma Chi at Bozeman. And Alan had a brother Jim who was a Sigma Chi at Bozeman, and so we were both invited to rush parties there, and we met. And Alan was a very interesting, very different kind of guy, and I always was very, very fond of him. So Alan and I and another Sigma Chi named Wiedemann we were kind of buddies, spent all of our freshman year together, Art Wiedemann. And then when I came back to school the second year, which would have been 50, your mother had transferred to Bozeman from. She had gone to a 2-year school down in Denver called Colorado Women's College, and then she came up to Bozeman for her third year of school. I was in my second year, and we were introduced by a friend of hers who was a fraternity brother of mine, and he was looking for somebody to take her out on a date because she didn't know anybody. He paid me $5 and loaned me his car, and I took her mother out on a date.
Does she know that?
I'm sure she does. Yeah, this guy's name was Chris Small, and Chris was the Cupid that got us together. And your mom and I, we started dating pretty much right from then, and dated that whole year. And we're married before the school the following year.
You were married in September?
We were married September 16th, 1951. I was 20 and she was 21. She had turned 21 in March, and I wouldn't turn 21 for another month or so. And when we were married, I had to have a note from my father to get a marriage license because I was less than 21. And when we went to the clerk's office in Fort Benton to get the marriage license, the clerk said that note isn't notarized, and so it's not acceptable. But we convinced her that she should give us the license because my dad was going to be there for the ceremony, and he would come in and she could acknowledge his signature again while he was there. He never did, and I've always told your mother that we were never really legally married because I didn't have a notarized note from my father permitting me to be married. But we were both very young.
Yeah.
So I can remember some of the things were very immature that I did as a young married man. I remember when we came to Spokane after the ceremony. We drove back, and Russell and Darlene drove back with us. And then some friends of ours, the Foxtons, had a cabin on Spirit Lake, I guess it was. Yeah. And they loaned us this cabin for a week, or for a few days at least, for our honeymoon. And I remember I invited Cap Aschenbrenner and his bride to come out and spend a night with us, which I thought was really a lovely thing to do, but hardly a romantic honeymoon thing. As I say, I wasn't too bright.
And she didn't know them.
Mother didn't know him. No,
No.
mother didn't know him.
Have strangers come and
Huh?
stay in the cabin with you?
Yeah, right. Yeah, you ought to ask her. If she hasn't told you that story, she probably will remember it if with a little prompting. I'm sure she was not very thrilled. Oh yeah, and also I had during the year before when we were courting, I had not been a very diligent student that year at Montana State, and as a matter of fact, we were on a quarter system, and the winter quarter, I'd really kind of quit going to class pretty much, and I was doing a lot of sleeping up in the dorm, and then going out with your mother at night, and I was taking a course from the dean of the engineering school, a course in illumination engineering, and I remember I missed an awful lot of classes, and I recall one morning one of the guys coming up to the dorm and saying, "The dean's on the phone, wants to talk to you." And I go down and get on the telephone. He tells me that I better leave his class because I was going to get an F if I continued, so I withdrew from the class.
Wow.
And then the spring semester, unfortunately, I contracted pneumonia, and I was out of school for, probably, it was like a 3-month quarter. I was probably out of school for a couple of months, and I had to withdraw from a lot of the classes then because of this illness. And so at the end of that quarter, the end of that school year, my sophomore year, Dad gets a letter from the dean saying that I've been suspended for failure to attend classes. And I remember we had to write a letter. Dad was very, very particular about this letter that I had to write to try and get myself back into school, and I can remember writing draft after draft of this letter, and he would look at it and he would not like it, and we would change it, and finally got it written and got a letter back saying I was admitted on probation. But I wasn't too thrilled about that idea, and I thought it would be neat to go to Washington State College, where Russ and Darlene were at the time, and my friend Rod Elliott and his new bride were there. I don't think your mom knew when we were married that I'd been suspended. but and I'm sure I sprung the idea of changing schools on her while we were still on our honeymoon, so I'm sure this whole thing was tough on her. But we did go down to Washington State College, and they wouldn't let me in because I was on probation at another school.
No,
So we ended up going back to Montana State College, and because of the discipline that she introduced into my life, I did very well from then on.